My name is Benton Stokes. I'm a former fundamentalist, post-evangelical worship leader, and songwriter. I enjoy wry Manhattans, roller coasters, and road trips, just not all at the same time.
I'm Elaine O'Rourke, and I'm a teacher, an author, and a spiritual coach. I was a philosophy professor and a liberal pastor in a couple of former lives, and these days, I love aha moments and not-so-dry martinis.
We have conversations about life and God with a queer perspective, over cocktails, like you. This is Cocktail Theology. So I understand that we are drinking a cocktail made with Benedictine this evening.
Yes, we are.
What else is in this cocktail?
Well, I just need to say before I tell you what's in it that I am deeply dubious about the quality. I haven't tried it.
Okay.
It is not things I would have put together in the proportions I put them together, but it's called Poet's Dream.
Okay.
Which makes me think of Rimbaud and the problems of laudanum-laden dreams of chaos, and but it's equal parts gin and Benedictine,
yes,
and dry vermouth.
Okay, let's try it.
All right. Okay, not as scary as I thought it was going to be.
No, it's actually nice.
It's not bad. All right. So I grated a lot of lemon peel in it because it's me and that's what I do. And then we've got the dried lemon, the dehydrated lemon slice that we've been making.
Yes.
That's in there that too. So I think that
it's pretty and it's nice.
It's good. It's good. I'm much less dubious about it than I was. Poet's Dream made me very nervous, but we wanted to use Benedictine tonight.
Yes. So Benedictine has a tenuous connection, we'll say, to an abbey in Normandy, which was destroyed conveniently during the French Revolution, so no one can confirm.
So a Benedictine monastery,
yes.
I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
So reportedly, Dom Bernardo Vincelli in 1510 created the recipe for Benedictine.
Okay.
It's derived from 27 different botanicals and spices and whatever, and it's a very secret, recipe.
Of course it is.
Well, Alexander Legrand, who was a collector and a member of a wealthy family of wine traders in the late 19th century, purportedly discovered the recipe. And and at the time, chartreuse was becoming popular. So
right.
he was, and chartreuse, is legitimately...
Is actually made by monks.
Actually made by monks. So he was kind of trying to capitalize. Yes.
Okay.
So, so he credited the recipe to monks that, and the recipe couldn't be found, and the abbey is burned, and there's no trail.
It's such a tragedy
that
it was lost,
right,
to posterity.
But thank goodness,
someone
Legrand was able to unearth the mystery that is Benedictine.
I did not know any of this. That's hysterical.
It's pretty funny.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. I love that. So, but we're drinking Benedictine for an actual specific reason. We
are. So, listener Angela asked us the question, who are our saints? Who are our saints? It's hard to say.
It is.
And so it got us thinking perhaps we should have a conversation about that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And of course, Angela was saying, there are the saints of the Catholic Church. She's Catholic.
Yes.
They're the saints of the Catholic Church, but also the saints who influenced our faith.
Yes.
Who either inspired it or sustained it or nurtured it or guided it, whatever. But that's the kind of saints that she was talking about. But I suppose it could include Catholic saints if there are Catholic saints who also did that, right?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. So I know we've been thinking about this a little bit since Angela.
We have.
Okay. Does anyone come to mind for you besides Aunt Matilda?
She did not make the cut.
Okay.
A few people. And interestingly, I think that a number of people that I would say have influenced my faith path are connected to music.
Okay.
One of those people was a lady that lived on my street named Mrs. Ingram. She would be sitting outside on her porch with her toddler out toddling in the yard, and I would be riding by on my bike. And she would sort of flag me down and start conversations with me. And she knew that I was a pianist, and so she asked me one day, what have you been playing lately? And I said, well, I've been working on a song, actually. I've been writing a song. Mm-hmm. And so she wanted to hear it. So I went into her living room and played it for her on her piano. And she loved it. I was 15. She loved it. And she said, there's this praise gathering that's happening at our church. She went to a church called the Belmont Church, which in the early 80s was very charismatic. Mm-hmm. Was also sort of a springboard for a lot of contemporary Christian music and worship, honestly, in the early 80s. The worship leader there was a guy named Michael W. Smith.
Oh, yes.
And he was young and wiry, and he had one album out, I think, at that time, mostly worship songs. He was coming out with another one. And she said, I'm going to see if perhaps you could play your new piece at the praise gathering. She did, and I did. And that, I think, was an important marker for me. It sort of legitimized my making up melodies for me in a big way, because the church was incredibly warm, gave me a standing ovation, the whole bit. And meeting Michael W. Smith afterwards and him encouraging me to continue to write. And actually, my path and his crossed a few times. He's been one of those figures, but if it hadn't been for Mrs. Ingram, I would never have ended up there. Right. And so I think she was very instrumental. And along with that, I would have to say Imogene Kincaid, who was my piano teacher from probably 5th grade up. She was Pentecostal, Church of God, beehive hairdo. She was just this very vivacious, outgoing, extroverted person, and she really just encouraged me to write, and I would bring in whatever song I'd heard on the radio, and she would encourage me to do that. So I didn't get a lot of the classical trappings of piano training, but I did learn how to play out of a hymnal, and I did play in piano competitions in my church, in my denomination as a high schooler, and she coached me through that. So I feel like those early influential people, Fred Mund, who was the minister of music at my church, who had me playing, accompanying hymns. So all of this was just sort of undergirding and giving confidence to me expressing my faith through music. And it was always that. It was always expressing my faith through music. Right. That's all I was interested in doing during those days. And so I credit them with that, and I would consider them, saints who pointed me in the right direction. And they were all, these were all people who were very committed in their faith. Right. And were encouraging me not just as a musician, but also as a Jesus follower.
Right. I love that they saw you and the way you would access, and then guided you into the ability to do what was God had already given you to do in the context of people worshiping, people being in touch with God and with each other. I love that. Yeah. That's really a great gift.
I think it is an amazing gift. I'm very grateful for it.
I love that. I didn't have that. So, my mother and my grandmother were Episcopalian, and we would sometimes go to church, but I would go to church with everybody I could. And I think part of it was community, but I think part of it for me was I just always had a really deep, deep connection with the things much bigger than I am, whether it is a suffering world or God or all those things. So there was something incredibly life-giving for me about going to churches for worship, no matter what the worship looked like. Yeah. I didn't do well in Sunday schools that proclaimed that everyone else was going to hell except the people in the room. Right. But other than that, it was really nurturing for me. So I would say, all those kids and their parents who invited me to go along, they're some of my saints. They're some of the formation for me. It's funny, because I didn't have those kinds of mentors really ever in my life up until, well, I'll let you know. But what I did have was people who got me to understand that God wasn't as stuffy as the rest of us. Oh, yeah. So when I was getting confirmed in the Episcopal Church, for those of you who don't know me, I have hereditary bunions, very wide feet, and shoes we didn't have much money, so shoes never fit, and they were always painful. And the day I was getting confirmed, the bishop was there to confirm all of us and to sign our Bibles. It was a big deal. Okay. Right? My feet had gotten really bloody from the shoes. Oh. So I couldn't wear them to be confirmed. But I don't know who told my mom, because my mom would not have just automatically said, well, you should just take off your shoes. I mean, she would never have said that. Yeah. But someone told my mom that it didn't matter. Oh, yeah. I remember that accommodation and welcome and that sense that the pomp and circumstance surrounding this important person was far less important than my connection with God. Yeah. And when I tell that story, it reminds me, apparently I was this person from day one. So I was born in Texas, and we were there for a few years, and I guess I must have been like 2 or something. And I hadn't thought about this in a long time. My mom tells the story about how we were in church there in Texas. I'm sure it was an Episcopal church, but it could have been a Pentecostal church because she worked for a Pentecostal minister who actually became a wonderful person in my life later, not on a religious thing, but on a, yes, people can change thing. Yeah. But anyway, but apparently, no, it was the Baptist church. That's it. Apparently I started dancing in the aisles while the music was playing.
In the Baptist church?
In the Baptist church. And again, somebody said, let her dance. If she's being moved by the songs of the church, that's a good thing, you know? Yes. And I think that those memories are the ones that really shape how I see our relationship with God. Yeah. And then the other piece of that for me is the sense that the altar, the Eucharistic bread, those are holy and deserve care and importance. That balance between the exuberance and the playfulness and the come as you are-ness and the things of God are holy and huge and important. Like, I think that's really the essence of me in a lot of ways. Right. So I would count just those experiences among my saintly experience, whoever those people were. Right. They were part of my saints.
I love that.
Right?
I love that.
So how about as you got older?
You know, later, after college, I was dating the woman that would become my wife, and on Wednesdays, we would go to a Bible study. And when I say a Bible study, it was 150 people, and all young people, many of them college students. And we would gather at Charlie Peacock's house. And Charlie Peacock lived in a converted church. So his living room was a church sanctuary. The teacher was Scotty Smith, who was a pastor at a PCA church in Franklin, a rather large church at the time, especially for a church that wasn't charismatic or evangelical exactly. Right. So it was kind of my first foray into theology that wasn't fundamentalist. Now, I had kind of broken free from some of that during college, but I think he gave me a foundation for what I was already starting to think and feel. I remember he would give us a handout, you know, it'd be like front and back typed pages, and I would write in every open space anything that he said that struck me. I was so hungry to hear something new, to give, I don't know, to give like legitimacy to what I was thinking and what I was feeling, because it was like some of what I was thinking and feeling was really counter to what I had believed formerly or things that my church had taught me. Sure. And so it was like, so I'm not crazy, you know, so I'm actually not reading that wrong. So I actually can trust my gut about this, and I can believe that the Holy Spirit may be speaking to me in a different way. Yes. So that was incredibly meaningful to me, and I was kind of wide-eyed. I was working in the music business, and I was in a band, and things were going pretty well during that time. And I think it was just a season of a lot of new. And a lot of things were just sort of, I was waking up to a lot during that time. And I just sort of, I pin a lot on him, but I know there were other things. There were books I was reading. There was music I was listening to. There were people that were crossing my path that were influencing me in new ways that, because I'm not by nature a very trusting person, I was dubious of some of that to begin with. But then, like, the further I went and the more I felt the Spirit in these Bible studies, I just started to trust it. And it was really eye-opening and heart-opening for me, that whole season.
Yeah. As you're talking and as we've been thinking about this, I've been trying to think, I mean, those of you who know me from other contexts, the obvious person that will come to mind probably for you is Dallas Willard, who was one of my great teachers.
Yes.
I would not consider him one of my saints. I would consider him a lifeline when I needed a lifeline.
Yes.
In a really tough season of my life. But I connected more with the combination of brain and heart than I did with the devotion in a particular way.
Yeah.
But as I look back and I think about, like, you had Scotty Smith and you had these people, for me it wasn't so much people as experiences. So I was thinking that some of my saints, if you will, are people like the Buddha, Krishnamurti. There's a passage in the Brothers Karamazov that has touched me, that's made me think about things. And often for me, it is that moment of when I can experience God in the moment.
Yeah.
That's those moments of holiness, saintliness that really carry me through.
I love that, yeah.
And it's just a difference in the way we connect with ourselves and with God and all of those things, right? So when I've been, marching in the streets and somebody's been doing it out of faith, right? Or when, I was singing a gospel chorus for a long time, 100 people, and there was this one woman, black lesbian. She was awesome. Not easy, awesome. But like when she sang, and she would sing about the struggles she had been through and how God had been so good, I was like, I believe every note coming from you.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things where I could actually witness other people's experience of it and then experience it myself, that for me has been where my saints have come out of. And some of them I never knew. I just heard in music, or I read, or I encountered for a moment where there would be like this split second of I'm engaged with somebody I didn't know and I could feel God's presence. Those become the saints for me.
Oh, wow.
Right?
I love that, yeah.
And I think that for me, that witness of not preaching, not even teaching, but just living your faith deeply and lovingly, for me, all of the people I've come across in my life, my very long life now, who have had that have been my saints.
Yeah.
And I would include, frankly, the Virgin Mary in that. She's been one of those people.
That's
weird, though, right?
Well,
It's me. It's going to be like that. All right. How about as an adult?
For a long time, I was a little rudderless. And some of that had to do with just my own inner angst about my sexuality. How does God really feel about me? I've kind of made Christian music my life's work at this point. So that and raising kids and being a husband and where am I actually in all of this?
Right.
Like, where am I? Right. I'm a collection of roles, and they're important roles, but where am I? And I felt like I lost myself in there, and I didn't really have, I tried a men's group. That was laughable. I tried connecting with other men. I tried reading books from people that were leaders in the evangelical church, and that wasn't working for me. And it was just a time where I think I went very inward.
Yeah.
And my prayers became a little more, well, sometimes desperate, honestly. And they were coming from a place of real kind of searching and some hurt and just being confused and trying to figure things out. Yeah. And wanting so hard to stay on the right road, whatever that was, but being very uncertain as to what that was.
Right.
So I wish during that time that maybe I had trusted myself more to reach out into new directions for my theology and for just ways to navigate all of that.
I can see that.
But I was afraid to do that. You know, even my therapist at the time was trying to encourage me to do that. And yet it was just, it was really hard for me to go there. So it wasn't really until after, I guess, I came out, and during that process somewhat, but really it's kind of after, and when I realized that I wasn't going to just lose church altogether, because I was afraid of that. That was a big thing. Once the heat was off of all of that, then I could start to figure out, well, what do I really think about God? Because a lot of those beliefs, I just sort of allowed them to get distilled down to basics, which, I mean, that's what deconstruction in its best sense is.
Yep.
And I held tightly to the things that I held tightly to, but I was willing to let go of a lot of other stuff to get to where I am now. And then I met you in the middle of all of that, you know? And I think I was at a point when I met you that I was finally ready to really like explore what I believed, because I wasn't there yet. I was in a church where I was serving, and I was happy to be serving. I was happy to be in a place where I could express myself that way, but there wasn't anything else in the church. Well, maybe some relationship building, community building. There wasn't anything else about the church that was really feeding my soul. Mm-hmm. And I remember having conversations with you about how empty I felt in that regard at that church. And I was trying to figure out, do I need to go? Do I need to change things here? And then you and I started changing things there, which was amazing. You know, that was crazy. But it was awesome. You just helped me to rethink so much. I think you helped me more than anything else. You helped me get out of my feelings. Mm. Because, you know, my faith growing up Nazarene was so emotionally charged. Like that, it was like, if you're not feeling the Spirit, do you have the Spirit? Oh, you know what I mean? Yeah. Being able to shed that and get to the point where I could start to think through why I believe what I believe, and start to dissect some of the things that I grew up thinking and discard the things that didn't fit me anymore. And you really helped me navigate that. So I'll always be grateful to you for that. But honestly, I really haven't had that many people, I think, as an adult, other than like a few books I've read. I can't even come up with any names right now because they weren't. It's not like I hung on every word that this author wrote, but it was just like there would be moments in books, you know, where I would read things and I'd be like, oh, that's really good.
There was a really popular author for a while. Oh, what was his name? Oh, shoot. I can picture the book cover. He was not somebody I loved. It'll come back to me, but I remember you really liking that book. I'll have to look it up.
Oh, it's probably Donald Miller.
Yes!
I went through a Donald Miller season. Yeah, Blue Like Jazz and Searching for God Knows What were big for me.
And then I turned you on to Rob Bell for a minute.
Yeah, and then there was Rob Bell.
There was a moment of Rob Bell.
Yeah. Love Wins. That's when I knew I was really a heretic. It's when I bought Rob Bell's book, and you couldn't get it at Lifeway. It's like, oh, damn. I've crossed the line.
God.
There's no coming back from this.
I'm sorry. That's so darn funny. I can't even tell you. I got Rob stories. Anyway, yeah.
That's really it, I think, for me.
Yeah, you know, and when you talk about it that way, I think about like essentially sitting under your piano, but like going through a really crappy period of time and the welcome. Yeah. And it's funny because you're much more warm now than you were then because you're much less concerned. And
I'm less guarded.
Exactly.
I was pretty guarded back then.
But in some ways, the fact that I was just until we started working together was exactly what I needed. Yeah. I needed no attention. I just needed to be a place, right?
Right.
And of course, you are so engaged in your music and so full of the Spirit. You know, when you experience the Spirit, it it becomes very obvious. I wouldn't say it shaped my faith, but I would say that it reminded me that God was there too, and that I could access God through music, which is basic for me.
Right.
And through other people, and through somebody telling me that I was singing the wrong part. Love you, Jeremy. But that kind of embrace without attention was huge for me.
Yeah.
Because, I was coming out of being a pastor, and so I
Right.
was used to having the attention, and I didn't want the attention. I just wanted a place to be, at least at that point. And so this goes back to the first things you mentioned. Your experience of the Spirit in your music, your ability to express the gift that God gave you, the skills that you have perfected, the people who influenced you and nurture you, all that coming out through your worship leadership was a huge, true lifesaver for me.
Wow.
And that helps me be now here.
Yeah, and here we are.
And here we are with the dubious Benedictines.
It's really good. It's getting better every time I drink more of it. Listeners, we want to hear, who are your saints? Who are the people that have influenced your journey, whatever that means, the journey of your spirit?
Yep.
One of our success stories is that a woman that we nurtured on her path converted to Judaism. Yes. And we count that as a big win, because we helped her work through some things that sort of helped her peel away the things that were keeping her tied to something that didn't fit anymore.
Yep.
And so, if
love you, Pam.
Yeah, if your path is Judaism, Buddhism, Universalism, Catholicism, whatever, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Who are those people and why?
Yeah.
Because I think our stories really do matter, and they matter.
Yes.
We underestimate how much they matter to other people.
Yes.
So I do hope you'll share your stories with us. CocktailTheology.com is where we are. Give us questions. Give us ideas for episodes. Thank you, Angela, for this one.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Till next time, friends.
Bye.
Funny how the view can change, how life just seems to rearrange itself. No matter what it was, I don't know how it goes, but look, moving on feels pretty good. Moving on feels pretty good.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and hit subscribe wherever you're listening right now. We welcome your comments, questions, and ideas for conversations and for cocktails. Please get in touch with us at our website, cocktailtheology.com. Cocktail Theology is a production of SFS. Our theme song is Moving On Feels Pretty Good, recorded by yours truly, Benton Stokes. You can find my music wherever you stream your favorite artists. Join us next Thursday for another new episode.